What do you do when you're just a kid, but the weight of survival makes you move like a grown man? When the only way out is through the very game that's trapping everyone around you, and every step you take has to be 3 steps ahead? Welcome to Movie Bites, where we bring you the stories that shaped us, moved us, and stayed with us long after the credits rolled. Today, we're revisiting Fresh, a gripping story of a 12-year-old boy navigating a world full of dope dealers, danger, and decisions no child should ever have to make. We'll check in on the actors behind Fresh, Nicole, Sam, Esteban, and more, seeing where they are now and how this unforgettable tale of strategy, survival, and street smarts still hits home today. Alright, let's take a moment and talk about Sean Nelson, the guy who brought us Fresh. Fresh wasn't just a regular kid. At 12 years old, he was already deep in the drug game, moving weight for the dealers on his block. But here's the kicker. Fresh wasn't just surviving, he was outsmarting the streets. Quiet, confident, and always thinking 2 steps ahead, this kid wasn't caught up in the hustle the way everyone else was. Fresh was playing chess while the world around him was stuck in checkers. And Sean Nelson, man, he owned that role. At just 14 years old, he brought this intense, quiet energy to the screen that made Fresh feel real, not just like a character. You could see the pressure weighing on him, the weight of having to grow up way too soon. And that final scene, the one where Fresh breaks down in tears, that moment will hit you every time. You watch him, and all you can feel is this deep sense of sympathy for a kid who's forced to make decisions no one should have to make at that age. After Fresh, Sean didn't slow down. He starred in American Buffalo alongside Dustin Hoffman and took on a powerful role in HBO's The Corner. Now at 44, Sean's still out there, popping up in shows like Law and Order and Elementary. But for so many of us, he'll always be Fresh. The quiet kid who played the game like no one else could. That kid's unforgettable, and that's why we still talk about him today. When we were young, we all had that one person, the girl or the boy we swore we'd grow up and marry, that childhood crush that made the world feel just a little softer. For Michael, aka Fresh, that person was Rosie. Sweet, kind-hearted Rosie. From the moment Fresh laid eyes on her, you could feel it. This was the first time we saw something different in him. Emotion, vulnerability. A tough kid who had the weight of the world on his shoulders. But when it came to Rosie, he felt something real. Something innocent. Rosie was played by Natima Sharee, and her story is just as heartwarming. Natima was born and raised in Jamaica into a deeply talented family. Her father is none other than internationally renowned musician and producer Kevin Harrington. She's also related to the late Mia Amber Davis from Road Trip and the jazz legend himself, Dizzy Gillespie. Talent truly runs deep in that bloodline. Her big sister, Amelia Sheldon, recognized early on that Natima had something special. So when a casting notice for Fresh popped up, Amelia didn't hesitate. With their parents' blessing, she took Natima to the audition. And just like that, history was made. Though Natima didn't continue acting after Fresh, she found a new path, one that still allowed her creativity to shine. She stepped into the world of literature and became an incredible author. Today, she's 42 years old, a proud mother of 2, and still inspiring others through her words. Wishing her nothing but love and success, because once upon a time, she was Rosie, and Rosie will always be remembered. Everything Samuel L. Jackson touches turns to gold, and Fresh was no exception. Let's talk about him for a minute. In the film, he played Sam, Fresh's dad. Not your typical father figure, but a brilliant chess master who floated in and out of his son's life. He was rough around the edges, maybe even a little broken, but his love for Fresh was real. Sam used that chessboard to drop wisdom the way only Samuel L. Jackson can. He even bragged he could beat any grandmaster alive if they had the guts to face him. And while he wasn't always around, the time he was there made all the difference. He taught Fresh the rules of chess, but what he was really teaching him was how to navigate life. Strategy, patience, sacrifice, and Fresh soaked it all up. Those lessons? They're exactly what he used to outsmart the kingpins and ultimately protect his sister. Samuel L. Jackson was 46 at the time, but let's be real, dude was already a legend. From Pulp Fiction to Shaft to Coach Carter, his filmography reads like a masterclass in iconic roles. Now at 76, his films have grossed over $27 billion worldwide, making him one of the most bankable actors in history. He's got the talent, he's got the presence, and just like Sam from Fresh, he's a master of his craft. No one brings that kind of energy like Sam Jackson. Ever seen someone who swore they were a master at something, talking big, chest puffed out, only to get smoked like a cheap cigar in the rain? Yeah, that was this guy. The self-proclaimed grand chess master, or should we say chess hustler, who hung around the park like it was his personal kingdom. And in his defense, most days it was. Dude would line up challengers like dominoes and knock them down one by one. He was slick, confident, and had no idea what was about to hit him. Now here comes Fresh. A kid. Just a kid, right? Should be easy pickings. Nah, Fresh pulled up, sat across from him, and gave him the kind of whooping that legends don't talk about. I mean, Fresh handed this man his own ego on a plate, gift-wrapped in humility. The look on the hustler's face? Priceless. The role was played by none other than the legendary F. Murray Abraham. And fun fact, the F in his name? That was added in honor of his father, Fareed. A real nod to where he came from. Abraham was 55 at the time, and man, his presence always elevates the screen. Like Samuel L. Jackson, this guy's been in everything. We'd be here all day listing his filmography. From Amadeus to Scarface to the Grand Budapest Hotel, he's done it all. And then some. Now at 85, he's still going strong. And for anyone who remembers Fresh, they'll never forget the day a kid made a park legend look like a rookie. Moving on, we've got Esteban. No, not Gus Fring just yet, but Giancarlo Esposito playing Esteban in Fresh. You might know Giancarlo as the chilling Gustavo Fring from Breaking Bad, but long before he was running a drug empire in Albuquerque, he was Esteban. A smooth-talking drug dealer who thought he had the world in the palm of his hand. At 36, Giancarlo brought that quiet, calculated energy to Esteban. On the surface, Esteban's got it all. A family, kids, and power, but he's also living a double life, cheating on his wife with Fresh's sister, Nicole. He's juggling all of this, thinking he's in control, but little does he know, Fresh is playing him. Esteban's the manipulator who gets outsmarted by a 12-year-old kid, and watching it all unfold is like watching a slow-motion car crash. You can't help but feel the tension, but at the same time, you respect Fresh for being the one to take control of his fate. But let's not forget, Giancarlo Esposito didn't stop with Esteban. He's been a force in film for decades, appearing in classics like School Days, Do the Right Thing, King of New York, and Mo Better Blues. His career is legendary, and his ability to switch between being calm, cold, and calculating and then completely human is what has kept him at the top for so long. Now at 66, Giancarlo's still making waves, but Esteban, he'll always be the guy who thought he was in charge, only to be outsmarted by a kid who saw the game for what it really was. Next up, we have N'Bushe Wright, who played Nicole, Fresh's older sister in the film. Now Nicole's story? Man, it hits you in the gut. She's beautiful, sharp, but clearly dealing with a lot. You can tell her self-esteem has taken a hit over the years, and it's heartbreaking to watch her fall deeper into addiction. There's this quiet sadness about her, especially when she moves out of their aunt's house and into the hands of Esteban, the same man Fresh is working for. And what makes it even worse is seeing it all through Fresh's eyes. He knows what's going on, he sees his sister being taken advantage of, and it eats him up. That pain, you feel it. N'Bushe Wright was 24 at the time, and even though her role wasn't huge in terms of screen time, she brought so much soul to it. That was only her second film. She made her debut just 2 years earlier in Zebrahead, 1992. And after Fresh, she kept that momentum going with powerful performances in Dead Presidents and Blade. But honestly, her career didn't take off the way you'd expect. And that's the part that stings a little. Because N'Bushe is a phenomenal actress. She gave us performances full of emotion, depth, and raw talent. She deserved so much more spotlight. Now at 54, she's still respected, especially in the Black community. N'Bushe Wright brought something real to every role. And no matter what, she'll always be remembered as Nicole, the sister who lost herself in the struggle while her little brother was trying to save them both. Up next, we have Aunt Frances, played by the lovely Cheryl Freeman. Now, Let me tell you, Aunt Frances was like an angel sent from heaven. She's the kind of woman who's got a heart of gold, always looking out for her family. She's Fresh's aunt, and even though life isn't easy for her, she's still doing her best to put a roof over his head and food on the table. Fresh, his older sister, and a few other kids are all living with her, and she's doing everything she can to hold it down. But here's the heartbreaking part. Aunt Frances is devastated to see Fresh caught up in all these misfortunes. She's the one who's been there for him, loving him, and trying to protect him. But at the end of the day, she knows she can't keep him from the streets. Letting him go is one of the hardest things she's ever had to do, and you feel that pain in her eyes. She just doesn't want any of her kids to suffer, and the world's weight is pressing down on her. Cheryl Freeman was a beautiful lady, and I've got to be honest, I had a huge crush on her. Now, I'm not sure exactly how old she was at the time of Fresh, but my guess is she was in her 30s. Doesn't matter though. She still looks amazing, even now in her 60s. Besides Fresh, she also appeared in Hanging with the Homeboys, 1991, and Dead Presidents, 1995. No matter what, she'll always be Aunt Frances, the rock in Fresh's life. You keep coming in late like this, and you're gonna mess it up for everybody. Let's circle back to Afi Bijou. Yeah, she played Michael's cousin, Fresh's cousin, and those were her words. She wasn't just nagging, she was concerned. She knew something wasn't right with the way Fresh was moving, and even though she didn't know the full picture, she could feel it. She cared, deeply. Like most sibling-like relationships, they had that back-and-forth energy, that tension that comes when one kid is trying to hold things together, while the other seems like they're drifting off course. She warned him, straight up, that if he kept pushing it, her aunt was going to send all of them to a group home. And that wasn't what she wanted. She wanted stability, peace, a roof over their heads that didn't come with that kind of threat hanging over it. Afi Bijou held her own in that role. She was 14 at the time of filming and brought so much authenticity to her scenes, like she was really someone who'd been through it and knew what was at stake. Just like many of the young cast members in Fresh, her career didn't quite take off afterward. She stepped away from the spotlight and now lives a private life. She's 45 years old today, and for many fans, she'll always be remembered as the tough but caring cousin who just wanted better for all of them. When Corky enters the room, everything goes still. Played by Ron Bryce, Corky was that guy, the kind of kingpin you didn't dare mess with. If he caught you breathing too close, you were as good as gone, like yesterday's leftovers. Corky didn't trust anyone, not even his most loyal guys like Jake and Daryl. The man was paranoid, always watching, always calculating. Ron Bryce brought a quiet, intense presence to the role, and you felt that every time he walked on screen. He was in his 30s at the time, but had the gravitas of someone who'd seen it all. This guy looked friendly, but trust me, he was dangerous. A single look from him was enough to make you think twice. And then there's Fresh, who, being the clever kid he is, knows exactly how to work Corky. He tells him that Jake and Daryl are sneaking around behind his back, something that wasn't true at all, but Fresh knew how to push Corky's buttons. Betrayal was Corky's weak spot, and just the idea of it sent him into a rage, turning on his own allies. That was Fresh's move. He played the game, outsmarting the Kingpin with nothing but a lie. Before Fresh, Ron Bryce had guest roles on Law & Order and SVU, showing up in a few episodes here and there. These days, you don't see him in prominent roles, but for fans of Fresh, Ron Bryce will always be Corky, the cold, calculating Kingpin whose paranoia got the best of him. Next up, we've got Jake, played by Jean-Claude Lamar. Just like Fresh, Jake was working for Corky, making his way in the world by doing some dirty work. He's a bit older than Fresh, but don't get it twisted, he's got that same hustle running through his veins. Jake's the type of guy who loves to play basketball, but make no mistake, he does not want anyone outshining him on that court. You can see it when he gets smoked by Curtis during a game. The guy's ego is bruised, and it's clear that he can't take being shown up. The tension is real, and when the dust settles, Jake doesn't hesitate to shoot Curtis, a school kid. And in the crossfire? Rosie, A young school kid who just so happens to be Fresh's crush ends up losing her life too. It's a tragic moment that hits hard, showing just how deep the chaos runs for these characters. Jean-Claude Lemay was 29 at the time of Fresh, and just 2 years earlier, he made his film debut in Malcolm X. His career never quite took off like many expected, and these days you'll mostly find him appearing in Christian films here and there. Now at 59, Jean-Claude is still active in the industry, but for a lot of people, he'll always be remembered as Jake, the guy with the quick temper who let his pride get the best of him. Do you remember that petite pregnant lady begging Jake for a freebie? Yeah, that was Consuela, portrayed by none other than Elizabeth Rodriguez. It's one of those quick scenes that hits you hard. I mean, a pregnant woman out in the streets trying to score crack? Man, that's heartbreaking. You can't help but feel sorry for her. And Fresh? Stone-faced. He wasn't moved by any of it. He saw people like Consuela every day, desperate, struggling, trying to hustle for a fix. To him, it was just part of the job. But that moment said a lot about the world they were all stuck in. Elizabeth Rodriguez was just 14 at the time, and this was actually her film debut. She was only on screen for a few seconds, but she nailed it. You felt her pain, her desperation, it was real. And from that tiny role, she was just getting started. A couple years later, she popped up in Dead Presidents, and from there, the momentum kept building. Now she's 44 and thriving. Most people know her from Orange is the New Black, where she played Daya's tough-as-nails mom, or from Power, where she kept the heat coming. The list of credits goes on and on. Elizabeth Rodriguez is a star, no question about it. But for those who've been following her journey since day one, we know it all started with Fresh. Alright, let's talk about Belinda Becker. Now this one right here is a deep cut. Most folks probably don't even remember her name was Fiona. In fact, if you blinked while watching Fresh, she might have slid right past you. But let me tell you, if you did catch her scene, you know it stayed with you. Picture this. Fresh is out there doing what he does, low-key slinging, while Jake's on the corner playing the lookout, doing his usual wild stuff. And then, boom, out of nowhere comes Fiona. A straight-up crackhead with no filter, no shame, and definitely no chill. She strolls up talking reckless, saying things so wild we can't even repeat them here without getting demonetized. Now here's the crazy part. As a kid, I remember watching that scene and thinking, wait, hold up, why does this crackhead kind of look good though? It was confusing. Like you could tell she used to be fine, but the streets had taken a toll. Real quick. She was that woman who was bad back in the day. Beautiful, confident, probably had dudes lined up. But then she got on that mess, and life hit hard. Still walking around like she's got it, but the world don't see her the same no more. The glow's gone. All that's left is the high she's chasing and the past she's trying to hold on to. Belinda Becker bodied that role. She was only on screen for a few seconds, but she brought that kind of raw, heartbreaking energy that makes a character unforgettable. That one scene? It felt like a full story. Now today, Belinda's aging gracefully. I'd guess she's somewhere in her 50s now, still doing her thing, still with that natural beauty. But for anyone who saw Fresh, she'll always be remembered as Fiona, the beautiful crackhead who got the shit smacked out of her by Fresh. Up next, let's talk about Daryl, played by the late Curtis McLaren. Daryl wasn't in Fresh for long, but man did he leave an impression. Remember that scene when they were playing cards and Corky was busy talking to Fresh? Daryl made the mistake of drawing a card while Corky wasn't looking. And boom, Corky flipped out. He hated anything happening behind his back, and Daryl caught the heat. The whole moment was tense, but also kind of funny. And that's all thanks to Curtis McLaren's delivery. He played it just right. Cool, low-key, and then caught off guard like, what did I do? Curtis was only 25 at the time. Fresh marked his second film appearance after making his debut a few years earlier in the 1991 movie The Hard Way. After Fresh, he kept working, popping up in film, TV, and on stage, doing his thing and showing real promise. He was one of those dependable actors who always brought something to the role, no matter how big or small. Sadly, Curtis passed away in 2014 at just 44 years old. He died in his sleep from a brain aneurysm, a sudden and tragic loss. Gone way too soon. Curtis McLaren may not have been a household name, But he was a true talent. And for those who remember Fresh, he'll always be the guy who brought a slice of humor to a dark story, even if just for a moment. Rest easy, Curtis. Let's move on to James, played by Jerome Butler. Now this dude right here, yeah, he was deep in the drug game too. James lived in that sketchy building with the little corner store downstairs, probably just a front to keep his real business under wraps. He was loud, arrogant, and had one of the slickest, foulest mouths in the whole movie. Who could forget when he looked at Fresh and said, "So you, Michael? I guess you used up all the ugly in the family." Cold. Straight up disrespectful. But that's James for you, full of attitude and no filter. And just like Esteban, James had Nicole wrapped around his finger. He wasn't offering her help, he was just feeding her addiction, keeping her close so he could keep control. Fresh saw through all of it, and you could tell it hurt him watching his sister get used like that. Jerome Butler, the man behind the role, didn't really stick around in Hollywood after Fresh. Instead, he took a different route. These days, he's a dialect and accent modification coach, working with actors, business clients, and performers to help them sound sharp on screen and in real life. He might be in his late 50s now, but to fans of Fresh, he'll always be remembered as James, the slick-talking dealer who underestimated a quiet kid playing chess with the whole block. Another foul mouth in the lineup, meet Chili, played by Cuban-American actor and musician Yul Vasquez. Chili was Esteban's right-hand man, second in command, and the guy Fresh had to report to every morning before school. But Chili didn't care about no school bell. Fresh shows up with the goods, barely making it in time, and Chili hits him with that slick line. "Don't worry, I'll write you a doctor's note." Like he was about to grab a clipboard and a stethoscope or something. Man, you had to laugh. Yul Vasquez was 29 at the time, still early in his career, but he nailed that role. That laid-back menace, the sarcasm, the unpredictability, he brought all of it. And he didn't stop there. Since Fresh, Yul's had a long, successful career in both TV and film. You might have seen him in American Gangster, Captain Phillips, Severance, The Outsider, and a bunch more. Dude's got range. Now 60 years old, Yul's still out here doing his thing. But for fans of Fresh, he'll always be Chili. The dude who didn't care if you were late to class, as long as you were on time for the drop. Let's move on to Mrs. Coleman, played by the always commanding Davinia McFadden. Mrs. Coleman was Michael's teacher, you know, the kind who doesn't play games and absolutely doesn't tolerate nonsense. When Fresh strolls into class late, she doesn't hesitate. She lets him know real quick that this is the last time she's letting it slide. No excuses, no passes. That's it. And honestly, her presence in the film, even for just a moment, felt like that one teacher we've all had, the one who demanded respect and kept everyone in check. She was an authoritative figure, the kind you respected even if you didn't always like being called out. And in a world where Fresh was surrounded by chaos and danger, Mrs. Coleman represented structure. She was a reminder that there was still a path outside the streets, even if it was hard to follow. Davinia McFadden was 33 when she took on this role. But she wasn't new to the screen. She had already appeared in the 1985 action flick, Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins. Over the years, she popped up in a handful of TV shows and films, always bringing that same strength and poise to her roles. Today, Davinia is 64 years old. Her last credited role was back in 2015, and though we haven't seen her on screen in a while, she left a mark, especially as the no-nonsense Mrs. Coleman, the kind of teacher who wasn't just trying to educate, but trying to keep kids like Fresh from slipping through the cracks. Now, let's talk about Hector, played by Anthony Ruiz. Hector is a character who shows up briefly but makes a huge impact on Fresh's journey. This guy is a white supremacist drug runner. We only see him in one scene, but it's crucial because this is where Fresh takes one of the biggest risks in his plan to escape the drug game. Here's how it unfolds. Fresh walks up to Hector with a plan in mind. He tells Hector he's a runner for Corky, offering up all of his savings, money earned from the same shady streets that have been ruining his life and his sister's. But Fresh isn't just looking to buy the white powder. He's looking to play the game from a different angle. He uses the money as a way to manipulate Hector, creating a rift between the rival drug factions. It's a smart move. calculated. Fresh isn't just out here hustling, he's trying to outsmart these dangerous players. This is his way out, a way to spark conflict that'll tear the drug empire apart and give him and his sister a shot at freedom. It's all about strategy and power moves. Anthony Ruiz was 38 when he took on the role of Hector. Prior to Fresh, Ruiz had roles in Crocodile Dundee, 1988, and Hanging with the Homeboys, 1991, but even now at 68, he's still active in the industry. His portrayal of Hector, though brief, stands as a reminder of how the smallest moments in a film can have the biggest consequences. Hector might not be around long, but the chaos he inadvertently helps bring about reshapes the entire story for Fresh, and in turn, shapes his escape from a world that was suffocating him. Now let's talk about Lieutenant Perez, played by the always solid Jose Zuniga. While most of the adults in Fresh were caught up in the streets or just plain checked out, Lieutenant Perez stood out. He actually cared. He was committed to cracking down on the drug epidemic tearing through the community, and he became a key figure in Fresh's escape plan from the chaos around him. Perez is the one Fresh turns to when it's time to make a move. After all the plotting, scheming, and chess-like maneuvering, Fresh finally flips the board and exposes Esteban's operation. And it's Perez who makes the takedown happen. The twist? Fresh had the lieutenant's number tucked away, given to him earlier with the words, "Call me if you ever need anything." That little act of concern, that number? It's what ends up taking Esteban down and gives Fresh and his sister a shot at a better life. Jose Zuniga was just 29 when he stepped into the role of Lieutenant Perez. Fresh was one of his earlier film appearances, coming right after his 1993 debut in Alive. And 1994 was a busy year for him. He also appeared in Spike Lee's Crooklyn. Over the years, Zuniga carved out a steady and impressive career, especially in television. You've probably seen him on all kinds of detective and crime shows. He's practically a staple in that world. Today, Jose Zuniga is 60 and still doing his thing in Hollywood. And for Fresh fans, he'll always be remembered as the one cop who didn't just wear the badge, he showed real heart. Now let's talk about Smokey, played by Charles Malik Whitfield. This dude wasn't out on the corner doing lookout duty. Nah, Smokey was deep in the underground scene, running things at that grimy little spot where they held illegal dogfights. You know the place. It's dark, dirty, and smells like sweat, smoke, and bad decisions. I don't even know what to call it. A basement arena? A street coliseum? Whatever it was, Smokey ran it like a seasoned vet. So the day Fresh and Chucky show up with Rasco, the dog they found off the streets, Smokey's already in hustle mode. He's like, "Yo, let's go, release your dog." No emotion, no sympathy. Just another fight to him, another dollar to be made. Rasco's about to throw down, and Smokey's too busy managing chaos to care that it's two kids bringing in the dog. At the time, Charles Malik Whitfield was just 22, and Fresh was actually his film debut. But this role was just the opening chapter for him. Since then, he's been steadily working, popping up in movies and TV shows, flexing that acting range. He's the type of actor who doesn't need to be flashy. He just shows up and does the work. And get this, he's still doing his thing to this day. Most recently, you might have seen him in Tyler Perry's hit show Beauty in Black, still holding it down after all these years. Now 52 years old, Charles Malik Whitfield took that gritty start in Fresh and built himself a career that's lasted decades. Up next, we got Talik, the kid who tried to act tough but honestly couldn't hurt a fly. Played by Daquan Smith, Talik was one of Michael's friends from school. He was part of the little crew, always hanging around trying to play the role. But you could tell he was the soft one of the bunch, probably even the youngest. And who could forget that moment when Chucky roasted him, joking that Talik didn't even know who his father was? Rough. But that's how kids were. Talk trash one second, then share a bag of chips the next. Daquan Smith didn't pursue acting much after Fresh dropped in 1994. His career never really took off, and he kind of stepped out of the spotlight. There isn't a lot of public info on him these days, but considering Sean Nelson, aka Fresh, is 44, we're guessing Daquan is probably around 42 now. Still, for those who remember Fresh, Talik will always have a place. Up next, we've got Chucky. Yep, that Chucky. portrayed by Luis Lantigua. Now, if you remember Fresh, you know Chucky was that loud, goofy buddy from school who talked a lot tougher than he actually was. He was the wannabe hustler, the kid who idolized the gangsta lifestyle without really understanding what came with it. Chucky had dreams of being a bad guy. He was always hyped, always talking slick, and always trying to convince Fresh to hook him up so he could work for Esteban. You could tell he thought he was ready for the streets, but if you were watching closely, you knew Chucky wasn't cut out for that life. Not even a little bit. And then came the twist. Man, when Chucky's fate hit, it hurt. Even though you could kind of see it coming, it didn't make it any easier to watch. For all his big talk, Chucky was just a kid trying to feel important in a world that didn't give him the time of day. Luis Lantigua brought that character to life with so much energy, so much rawness. But after Fresh, he pretty much vanished from the spotlight. No public info, no interviews, no social media presence, just gone. Wherever he is, I genuinely hope Luis is living his best life. Because for those of us who watched Fresh growing up, Chucky will always be that unforgettable mix of funny, tragic, and way too real. And speaking of gone, let's talk about another character who dipped out of the limelight but still left his mark, Anthony Thomas, who played Red. Now, Red might have been part of Corky's crew and Jake's homeboy, but don't lump him in with the rest of those wild cards. Red had something different. He had heart. He wasn't out here looking to flex or cause chaos. In fact, he was the only one in that crew who seemed like he had some sense. He worked for Corky, sure, but he didn't move with that same reckless energy. He was the one trying to calm Jake down, keep things from spiraling, and offer a little mercy when things got hot. He could be tough when needed, but more than anything, he was capable of talking, reasoning, something you didn't see much of in that world. Anthony Thomas brought that quiet strength to the role, and honestly, it made Red stand out. He wasn't in your face, but he stuck with you. After Fresh, Anthony stepped away from the limelight, and there's not much public info about where he went or what he's been up to since. But wherever he is, we're sending nothing but good energy his way. In the end, Fresh wasn't just a movie about a kid caught in the streets. It was about survival, sacrifice, and strategy. Michael played life like a chessboard, moving piece by piece until the king was cornered. He lost friends, shed innocence, and even had to put down the dog he loved. But when the dust settled and the noise faded, what was left? Just a boy, sitting across from his father. Tears falling, not because he was weak, but because he was finally allowed to just be a kid. Thanks for watching Movie Bites. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe.